Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you in another video. Alright, so told myself I would just pick a team and just look at their situation and just talk about it. So that's what I'm doing. And the random team that I'm picking is the Clippers. I know. Why them? I don't know. Well, I actually can answer that question specifically. I do know why I picked the Clippers, and it was because I took a look at their roster and realized they had a little more young talent than I initially had thought, and was kind of intrigued by what they've just put together with that young talent. And then that took me to the trade machine and it showed me what their contracts look like. And that looked a lot more intriguing than I ever thought it would have. Um, this is an interesting year for the Clippers. This is an interesting year for the Clippers. I think now that I've studied them a little bit, I think they actually do have the potential value to make a trade for James Harden. Now, whether or not these are pieces that Daryl Morey and company would think are good enough to get them what they want is a whole nother story. But are they of value to where you can trade them to get other things right now? Most of what the Clippers have is tradable. A good all of it, actually. All of it. Just about every contract I see, I don't see a contract here that I'm saying, oh my God, I can't get rid of. None of them. And so let me break down what I see here. First of all, Kawhi and Paul George are on identical contracts, 2 years, $45 million. Now, contingencies and all different types of stuff that goes with those contracts I'm not aware of. Who has what attached to bells and whistles, I don't know. Just years and dollar amounts, all I'm aware of. But they have that in common. Norman Powell's on a 3-year, $18 million contract, probably the worst one of them all. And I like Norman Powell, and I think most of the league likes Norman Powell too. At 18 a year, probably not. So he's the one contract I think that they're probably not as likely to move at cost value or get something good for it or what have you, which you don't mind, because if I'm the Clippers, Norman Powell's the one guy that I'm certain I don't mind holding on to out of everything I got, pretty much. I think he's somewhere in between the timeline. He's not too good to where I have to expedite the timeline to help him win. He's a good player, just on a little more of an expensive contract than I would appreciate. But whatever I'm putting together, whether it's win now or rebuild, I'm fine with him on the team. And at 18 mil a year, I think he's capable of playing that up, especially if the team is bad and we need him to do more. So that's what I think of Norman Powell. It's not the worst situation to hold on to him, which probably means he's not the worst situation to acquire if another team has to take him on. So solid. Nicholas Batum's contract is expiring, $10 million expiring. So if someone doesn't mind paying taxes on all these expiring contracts that the Clippers have, you can free up a lot of cap space with what it is that the Clippers are bringing to you with all these guys that they got. Batum's on a 10-year expiring, Covington's on a 10-year expiring, Morris Senior's on a 17 mil expiring, Plumlee's on a 5 mil expiring. So like all of this stuff is going to free up cap space for somebody who wants to free up cap space next season. A team like the New York Knicks, who have contracts with players that you probably want to move on from, you could throw all this crap at the Clippers, take all this crap from the Clippers for your bad contract. In theory, maybe you want to send them Julius Randle. Maybe you want to send them R.J. Barrett. That would be a good player for the Clippers to have to add to what it is that they're trying to do. That would allow you to free up all kinds of cap space to sign whatever superstar you want to put next to Jalen Brunson. And so that looks like the move to me if I'm like trying to just create salary for my situation. Maybe if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm taking a few of those expiring contracts. Maybe I'm swapping it for my bigger expiring contract. Sending Tobias Harris back to the Clippers where he had a very good year at once upon a time. So this type of stuff is possible. If you're the Clippers, you can actually make a play for some of these players that maybe want to get off a certain team. Think about Zach LaVine. I suddenly think the Clippers don't even have to aim for James Harden. They can go after a guy like Zach LaVine with some of these expiring contracts they have. And with the Chicago Bulls likely wanting to relieve themselves of salary, next season, to kind of make up for what is undoubtedly going to be a year where they're going to be capped up but not good enough. Maxed all the way out for that cap for the players they put together and still not reach the mountaintop at the end of this upcoming season. They could use some of these expiring contracts to put them in a position to have some cap space next summer. So that's just one of several teams I think may be willing to take on some of what the Clippers are ultimately able to give him an expiring contract. So the Clippers are in a good position to rebuild. They're in a good position to retool. They're in a good position to swap out some of their vets for better ones. All of that should be doable. And I look at their young players that I was telling you guys about, and they have a nice crop of role players that can probably really be sturdy for them as they put forth their rebuild. I look at a guy like Brandon Boston. He's also on an expiring contract, by the way, at $8 million. How Brandon Boston's making $8 million, I do not know, but that's what he's on right there. Amir Coffey's contract is 2 years, $3 million, so that's a really good contract to have. I think he's a really good player. He's only getting better. Bones Highland, $2 million for 2 years. That's dirt cheap. Terrence Mann, 2 year, $10 million. Not too bad. KJ Martin, $1 million, 1 year, expiring. Clearly, they're going to give him some type of extension immediately. That boy shouldn't even play a game until they extend that. A $1 million contract for 1 year from one of the most athletic players in the league, who's likely going to be one of the most improved players in the league on this Clipper team? Hell nah. Get him some money, man. Pay that kid. Xavier Moon is a young player who had a good summer league, tore my Lakers up, so he's on the map with me. I'm not familiar with Jordan Miller or Jason Preston, but they're also young players on this team. I think Jordan Miller is someone they just drafted right now. And Musa Diabate is also a young role player on this roster that makes up a crop of young players that should be gaining value as they play more games for the Clippers. So you can see ascending talent there that's not just old guys on expiring contracts, but a nice crop of young guys that can make for a good trade package themselves. If you pair them all together and send them out at once, you can get back something mighty right there. So that's what I'm saying for the Clippers. Like, if they feel the way I feel, they just trade everything. Truthfully, forget this James Harden idea. Just take all of this stuff that holds pretty solid value this summer, which is everything you got, and swap it for a bunch of stuff that you can pick and plug as a brand new squad for yourself. I don't know why they didn't redo their whole team. I don't know why. To be completely honest with you, this is a perfect time to do it. Because all this stuff is valuable, and a lot of it's going to be coming off the books organically, as to which you'll have a cap space in the LA market as well for all of these wonderful things. So, if you don't want to be aggressive, that probably does work in your favor to let all this stuff expire and take all that cap space with that LA market to attract somebody. But the only problem is, what are you building? What are you building? That's the question I would have for them with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George at that point, then being on an expiring contract. Are you re-signing them, or are you trading them as expiring contracts at $45 million? And I'm pretty sure they would be attractive next season for a team that wants to make the playoffs. It's a hell of a tax pay for, we saw how that went with Russell Westbrook's 1 year expiring. But the point is, if they want to trade Kawhi and Paul George next year, they'll probably get something good for those guys next year, so long as they're healthy, which is not the greatest bet for Kawhi particularly. But 2 year, 45, I'm not taking no Kawhi's contract, so they're probably stuck with that, to be honest with you. I'm not doing that because I don't expect him to play. And Paul George is probably an attractive piece. I'm pretty sure that's what Daryl Morey wants them to throw in order to get James Harden out of there. So, yeah, man, I'm moving some of this stuff, but I really, really like some of the players that they got. And I don't think I wrote down Kobe Brown, which is the most important piece in all of this for me. But I'm glad I thought of him now, because Kobe Brown is the future of the Clippers if I'm running things. He's the future. 6'7", 250 pounds, and shot 45% from the three in Summer League, which I think can translate. This is a monster. And he specializes on the defensive end. That's what he's known for. So it's like, this was somebody I would have loved for the Lakers to get. But since he lands in Clipper land, I think he might be arguably their best asset, young asset, at this point. Especially given what I think his upside truly is, which may be actually all-star. And he's in a great spot for him to showcase himself. And I just like what Terrence Mann, KJ Martin, Bones Highland, I like that for the Clippers. They should be very happy with that young crop of young players there, that they can grow and kind of move on from the era that they've been in with Kawhi and PG and all that. They should have a nice young core there. Not overly great. You're going to need to add star players to that. You're going to need to add higher level players to that. But yeah, they're going to get better, man. They're going to get a lot better if they use them together. And so that's my attitude. I'm of the mindset that Batum and Covington and uh, Morris Senior, they all need to be out of here right now. Send them out. Those are expiring contracts. If you're not excited about bringing back the cap space, you can use those players to bring yourself something more sturdy that contributes to what these young players are going to be about. Somebody that's going to be aligned for 2 or 3 more years at the age of like 23, 24 years of age with some real upside. You can move some of those vets for a player like that. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. Send some of them dudes to Orlando or grab a kid or two out of there. Go grab Cole Anthony. Go grab just whatever, that kind of thing. That's what I'm doing. I'm sending Covington over there, sending Batum over there, and I'm bringing myself back something young. Because that's what the Clippers need to do. Forget all this old man stuff. They have more youth than age at this point. It's half and half, more or less. It's half and half, more or less. Now I look at it, it's half and half. But you can scoot all that old stuff out of here and keep that young timeline and move forward just fine. Because all the old stuff is expiring anyway. So that's what I'm doing, man. If I'm the Clippers, I'm not keeping none of these guys. They're still serviceable to a degree, but we're not good enough to win a championship, and we know it. But we are good enough to trade some of this stuff so that we can get good enough to have a foundation that will allow us to move forward into another era, not falling off a cliff when Kawhi and PG move on. And I would trade them, of course, just because they have value still, and they do have the injury issues they have. But I don't think the Clippers are on board with moving Kawhi and Paul George, so that's what it is. But for me, I'm not married to either one of them dudes. I don't believe in that core. I think they're redundancy to a degree, and they're aging, so they're not the same on defense. So it's just like, I don't really need it. I mean, they're good, obviously great shot makers, particularly Kawhi Leonard. Paul George is in the regular season, but in the playoffs, no. So it's like, what am I doing with these guys, really? What am I doing with them? Are they a championship core? They've proven they are not. And the stuff that we have is good, but it ain't good enough to beat the field. And like I said, these expiring contracts, we can trade for stuff that may be good enough to beat the field. So that's what I'm thinking. You got to make some moves. I would love to see them go after a guy like Miles Turner. That kind of thing for the Clippers makes sense to me. You can move Zubats, move Morris, something like that, and just bring yourself back a higher level of talent. But this James Harden thing, I like the idea of having Paul, Kawhi, and James Harden on the same team 6 years ago. But in 2023, based on what it is that the field is, if I had to choose between them and the Suns, I'm just going to quickly pick the Suns. You know what I mean? If I'm going to go with a 3-man team, it ain't going to be Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden. That ain't the 3-man team I trust in this situation. It's just not. And when you look at what the Suns have and what they put together with their role players, they just have more. They have more. So unless the young players step up and play way better than expected, or the old men somehow have great years because they're expiring and they're getting paid this summer if they can stay in the league. Maybe you get a big year out of all these guys because of it. A guy like Covington has a resurgence of some sort, maybe plays a little more games than expected just because he's coming up on his free agency. So these are all things that are possible. But I don't really know what the Clippers' vision is for what they want to do next summer. That's what it really comes down to, because I can see an option where keeping everything and letting everything expire is a great way to go. If they have their eye on a specific free agent next year, they'll have the money for that person or several people. But if they want to continue to win now, then making a trade now to get better is obviously something they can do and should be considering. Now, if I'm Philadelphia looking at what the Clippers have, some of this stuff is something they should want. Some of these things are things that you want. For example, Kobe Brown, you need to go get him from the Clippers. Not to say the Clippers should move Kobe Brown, because they definitely should not. But that's something, if I'm Daryl Morey, that's a player that I'm going to have at the end of this process. Just letting y'all know that. KJ Martin might be on the move again. I'm going to take all the stuff that I think the Clippers have that I really, really think can really balloon. And the two players that come to mind immediately are those two. The KJ Martin and Kobe Brown. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm trying to weasel my way out to get those players. If you're going to take James Harden, you ain't going to keep all these youngsters. So yeah, that's how that got to be. And maybe they don't. Maybe I was listening to Daryl Morey, and I only bring them up in the Clippers video because, of course, they're trying to get James Harden on the Clippers. But he was essentially saying that he's willing to do a trade in regards to moving James Harden, but only if it gives him back draft equity or a young star level player, like not young, but a star level player to run with Joel, aka Paul George. The Clippers don't have draft equity like that. They do have this crop of young players that we mentioned that could be seen as affordable, high level, ascending talent, role playing, not high level, but you know what I mean? They could be better and will be better if they get the playing time for which Philly should be able to showcase them. Maybe they can consider some of these dudes in trade instead of taking on the draft equity, because some of these guys were just drafted 5 minutes ago. KJ Martin ain't even had that many minutes in this league. Coffee ain't played that much. He's on an affordable contract. Bones Highland hasn't played that much. His contract is dirt cheap. So it's like, if you're Philadelphia, you can probably make a push with all these young players that the Clippers got. Send them James Harden. Maybe take the ones you don't necessarily love and ship them off in a third team. But if Daryl Morey wants to get creative with what the Clippers have, it should not be a problem for him to get back a good equity trade for James Harden based on what it is I'm looking at in these numbers, these contracts. Unless they have some no trade clauses, some weird stuff that I don't know about in regards to these contracts. These are contracts that should be able to be shipped somewhere else in a 3-team deal. If for some reason we just have to make a deal with the Clippers. It's not like I don't think I can move Covington on a 1 year, Batum on a 1 year. Somebody gonna take these dudes. Marcus Morris Sr. Some team is gonna take his $17 million expiring contract. I just don't know what Daryl Morey is particularly looking at and what he wants the Clippers to do. That's what I would tell him. If the man's trying to force his way to the Clippers and this is all the Clippers got, I'm not sure that it's not like this is the Heat stuff. You know what I mean? The Heat don't have anything at all to send that would remotely look attractive to the Blazers, in my opinion. The stuff that they got, some of it's expiring, some of it's, but it's not as affordable as all of what the Clippers are holding here. Nothing that's going to be on for more than 2 years. Nothing that's going to take you above $18 million. So it's like, if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm just going to take a handful of what they got and just ship James Harden's $35 million affordable contract, because it is considered for affordable based on James and who he is. I'm shipping it to the Clippers. Why? Because if you do try to ship James somewhere else, you're going to find out he don't have much more value than that. Not only because other people are aware that he wants to go to the Clippers, but because he's just not expected to do that much. Which is why you guys don't want to pay him in the first place, Philly. So I don't think this trade shouldn't hold up. If guys don't want to be petty to one another, if guys just want to get this deal done, based on what it is I'm looking at here, something should be able to be worked out between the Philadelphia 76ers, the Clippers, and a third team. There shouldn't be nothing to move this stuff. This ain't like last year or the year before where these guys were on multi-year deals and they're all old and the rest of the team don't hardly have no young talent and all that. This ain't that for the Clippers this year. They've acquired enough young talent, and these contracts have aged just enough to where all of this stuff should be movable. All of it. So that is what's on my mind, man. The Clippers don't have any more excuses. That's what I'm here to say. Everything they have is fairly valuable. Everything. And so they got to make moves, man. They got to make moves, and they got to be intent on being better than they've ever been, because quite honestly, you still ain't won a championship. And all these good eras that you had, the Blake Griffin era, now the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George era, you have not been to the finals as of yet, and have been arguably a contender every single one of those years. Arguably every single one of those years. So at this point, it's like I'm watching teams like the Houston Rockets make bold moves, whether I agree with them or not. The Lakers are being careful and methodical, and sticking to a plan regardless of what's going on around them. They seem to be uber focused. I look at the teams like the Suns, they're uber aggressive. Look at teams like the Pacers, they're aggressive. Charlotte's drafting aggressively. Utah's aggressive. San Antonio just got Wembanyama. Detroit is doing bold stuff. And you pick and choose whatever direction you want to go, and you're going to find teams that are doing things that are locked into what it is that they're doing. And when you look at the Clippers, I can honestly say I'm not really sure what they're doing. And it seems like they're just kind of someone is choosing them, so therefore that makes them move. And it's just like, that's good, but what else are you doing? Why are you satisfied? Who do you want to target next summer that makes it so that all these expiring contracts are necessary to keep? That's my question to the Clippers. What are you after next year? And if you have your eye on a specific superstar, are you sure he's not going to sign an extension? Like, are you sure he's going to choose you in the end? Because all of this stuff you got could probably help you trade for a guy that's already on a multi-year contract, like a Jaylen Brown, or like I said, Zach LaVine or somebody like that. That would be what I would be trying to target if I'm the Clippers. Target a team that's right on the verge of blowing up, but still has a good superstar, or needs to move on from that superstar because they don't want to pay him or something like that. That's the situation that I think the Clippers can most benefit from. So yeah, I'm targeting Zach LaVine. That's me. I don't want James Harden. I want Zach LaVine if I'm the Clippers. Give me Zach LaVine. Give me Zach LaVine. I will ship all of these expiring contracts and a couple of these young players up to you, Chicago, for which you definitely could use the cap space at the end of the summertime next year, or at the beginning of the summertime in the free agency. Give me Zach, and I'll send you a bunch of crap. Right? You can have Norman Powell. You can have Marcus Morris. And then I'll throw in something else, maybe, hell, whatever you want. All these young players, I send them all to you. All these expiring contracts, you can have them all. Give me something like that. And so I don't know if Chicago Bulls say yes, probably not. But nevertheless, that's the type of ambition that I would be holding with this type of assets in place rather. So yeah, man. Yeah, Kobe Brown is going to be a lot better than the 30th overall pick. Y'all mind these words. If he doesn't have any injury issues or nothing like that, that dude is going to be better than the 30th overall pick. That it was understood that night, as far as I could tell. I told y'all that 2 weeks before that, 3 weeks before that, when I thought he was going in the second round. So I'm as a Laker fan, I'm not wearing my Laker shirt, I thought I was, but as a Laker fan, I prefer no one named Kobe ever play for the Clippers, but they definitely drafted a legitimate one there. Definitely that. Big dude, definitely hard to guard with all 250 of those pounds. And he's entirely too skilled to take lightly. When you think about guys like Paolo Banchero and guys that are big and skilled, he might be Paolo light in some ways if he continues to develop the way they look like he's going. So I don't know if people see what I see there. But yeah, that's going to be a very, very serious player as he continues to develop, that the Clippers put a spotlight on him. And I don't see why he wouldn't earn that starting power forward spot, even though he's listed as a guard right now. Maybe he should be a guard. I don't know. Still too early for me to know too much about the player. But as far as his size, I definitely feel comfortable putting him at the 4. I'll tell you that. But if he's more so a guard, even better. You know what I mean? It's a new day. 250-pound guards can be possible. So yeah, that's what I want to say, man. I'm not looking forward to my team having to guard some of these heavy dudes that are coming, because I know our Lakers, we don't have the size for some of these dudes. So that's yet another one. Him and Zubac's going to be a nightmare to have to guard on the same court at the same time. So the Clippers have a sneaky little dynamic there, especially if he steps forward, Kobe does, and takes on a real role in this league in his rookie season, which I don't see any reason why he shouldn't, to be honest with you. Based on the names that are on that list, he's going to be someone that I would probably want to see more of than some of those old dudes, man. Batum and Covington, they shouldn't be getting minutes over that young player. Not in my book. No disrespect to those guys, but nah, they're going to sit, he's going to play if I'm running things. KJ Martin, they're going to be on the floor, man. So that's what the Clippers should do. Push a lot of that stuff that they've been leaning on to the back of the depth chart, and move some of these young players to the front of the depth chart. Showcase them, develop them, and get the new era of the Clippers going. That's what I want to see for those guys. That's what I think is best for their team. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. It's a new day in Clipperland, and they will have their new arena, of course, next year. Great arena. I've seen it in person. It's building up just fine. So yeah, state-of-the-art everything. They should have state-of-the-art talent in place as well, and that's what we always say about that team. So that pretty much concludes my Clipper video. We'll keep an eye on them, see if they get James Harden. If not, I think it'll probably be for the best that they don't. Sort of like the Knicks not getting Donovan Mitchell, I think was for the best overall. And I do believe that the Clippers are in a similar situation right now. If they just don't overpay for James Harden's contract and aim for whatever it is that would ultimately complement those young pieces that they are ultimately going to benefit from playing more if they do. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.